All right, hello, and let me begin with the official cheers and say welcome to each and every one of you. Doug here with the Lincolnlist.com, and this is Happy Hour with the Lincoln, where I will do my best to answer all of your stock market related questions, tell tales, and rant about stock market topics, and share my 2 decades of trading experience with you, just so you can become a better trader. Now, if the little nuggets of information I share with you about my journey and experiences help you rub together a couple of extra pennies each month, I've done my job, guys. I've done my job. Now, I want to warn you before I start, I think my chair is broke because I swear the moment I started, I was like just a little bit higher. It keeps sinking lower. So maybe halfway through, I'm like way down here or something. I'm just going to keep riffing. That's what I'm going to keep doing. So let's get started. I know we got a wild market here. And with a wild market, I get some wild questions. Some of you are seeing corrections for the first time. Some of you are seeing all the technical analysis, all the fundamental analysis, all the things that you have learned with your process that you've learned to trust be blown out of the water with news events. And we're going to talk about that here. So I'm going to read the first question and then we'll go through that. So it says, Doug, I am new to trading here, or relatively new, and in parentheses it says 1 year. I was starting to feel comfortable with my trading until the current market correction, which has put me in a mental chokehold. I like that, mental chokehold. I cannot hold winners long enough. I stop out too soon on my losers, and my charting is not very reliable at all. I'm waking up every morning nervous to trade, and I know that's bad. Yeah, it is. How are you able to handle corrections? Is it a learned skill? Or are you born with it? Man, let me tell you what. Yeah, everything in trading is a learned skill. We ain't born with none of this stuff, huh? No, I was not born with this. I'll tell you how I learned. I learned from getting burned. That's right. I want you guys to write that down. That's how we all learn. We learn by getting burned. If you get burned, you're going to learn. And I learned by losing 2 accounts during a market correction. Thank you very much. That's how I actually learned how to trade future corrections. And then, unfortunately, sometimes that's what has to happen. You must get burned before you learn. So no, nothing is sort of born with it. I know some people are going to probably disagree with this, but maybe one time I thought otherwise, but I don't think any of us were born to trade stocks. There's just something about trading stocks. It's like, who was born for this? You got to train yourself to do this. I mean, you got to train. And I've always stressed so much, and the reason that we do happy hours is to talk about some of the stuff that other people just won't talk about. Because everybody wants to just kind of sell you on, draw a couple of lines, look at a moving average, MACD crossover, booyah, you're going to make some bucks. Please, man, it just doesn't work like that. It's all mental to me. It's always been mental to me. And I'm so sure of it that you can just give me somebody who's mentally strong person with tons of confidence that can get back up time after time, and they could be totally ignorant when it comes to stock trading, and they'll still figure it out. They'll just figure it out because they're just mentally kind of made up that way through training, through their live training, through their upbringing, through their background. I'm not saying that you guys have bad upbringings or something like that. I'm just saying that trading itself has a different type of mental challenge that other career paths do not. And it takes each and every one of us a little bit of time to develop ourselves mentally into the kind of trader we want to be. And to me, that's what I suffered with. Because when I first got into trading, I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't know much about trading, and I first thought it was easy because I was being aided by one of the biggest bull markets of all time. Then when the correction came, I wasn't prepared like probably so many people are right now. That led to really hurting my ego, really doubting myself as a person, and just destroying my confidence. So then after that, I really buckled down and I studied a lot about trading. I read a lot of charts. I studied a lot of charts. I kept really accurate journals, and I really focused, and I tried to get better. But the monkey that was on my back, or the weight that was on my back, was all of that psychological damage that I did. It took another year or so to kick that habit, to restore confidence in myself, to restore my self-belief, to restore just sometimes my dignity. I mean, sometimes trading pissed me off so bad, I felt worthless as a human being. I mean, it really felt that way. So it's a learned skill for all of us. Some people are going to have a little bit more of that, maybe a tiny advantage, but I think we all have to sit around and, work our way through that. Now, this is what I want to talk about when it comes to these, because when the market changes, or actually not even if it changes at all, one of the biggest developments going from an amateur trader to a professional trader, at least for me was, and I would say probably for a lot of others, is you don't know. It's that mental belief, but you don't know if your strategy really, really works. Your process really, really works until your back is against the wall, until you have been pressed to your very last mental strain of ability, till you have just been pushed as far as you think you can be pushed. Because we're all sort of like in this little zone box that we live in. We have it like a comfort zone, right? We're all in that. And in order for you to be a good trader, you're going to have to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you're going to find yourself in uncomfortable situations. Now, a lot of traders out there might say, no, you should never be uncomfortable with a trade. You should just lay it right out. It should just be a stop here. It should just be a target here. That's it. Walk away from it. No. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those little nuances in between, to where you're almost at a stop, but it's still working. Or you're close to a target and you got a little profit and you're wondering whether you should take it or not, or you should hold on. It's all of those little micro decisions that traders have to make that end up being the difference of becoming wildly successful or wildly frustrated. And I think a lot of you know what I mean if you've done some trading. There's all of these little intraday decisions that you have to make. There's things that tinker around with your stops. There's times you get stopped and it bounces right back. Do you immediately re-enter? What do, right? It's all of those types of decisions. And that's what I'm talking about with being uncomfortable. I'm also talking about learning to be uncomfortable with understanding what risk is, because we all want to feel that when we get into a trade that it's going to work right away and there's not going to be any drawdown whatsoever. We're just sort of going to get in the trade and then it's just going to go green and we're going to make money on it. And those just don't come by often at all. What it is those decisions, the ones that kind of push us, the ones that give us a little bit of drawdowns, the trades that make us a little bit uncomfortable, those are normally the ones that end up working out good. So in this lesson, what I wanted to talk about today was getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do that, but the biggest, obviously, is the screen time. I know we always talk about this, and it's something you can't overlook. You have to have screen time. You have to witness what you're witnessing right now, because the greatest teacher in the world, I don't care who it is, think of the greatest stock teacher you think, the greatest, whoever, put them up there. They can't really tell you, they couldn't explain this to you right now if you weren't experiencing it. Nobody could just like tell you what this is like. You have to live this type of a correction. You have to live through this type of market to understand. Now, if you're going to do this for a long term, you're going to have to deal with periods like this all the time. The market always has corrections. In fact, I think 2019 was one of the most bullish years I've ever seen. It felt like it was just day after day, Groundhog Day style bullish. But there was actually two corrections that year of over 5%. It was like, oh, there's actually corrections there. It didn't feel like it. And I know this one's a little bit more exacerbated and so on, but you're going to have to go through these and you have to live through them. You have to experience them in order to understand them. And they also help you understand the principle that I've been talking about for weeks. The risk on versus risk off is understanding that when the market slows down, you start to see things a little clearer. That's when you need to be aggressive. Times like this, you need to dial down the aggression. I know this is not something I tend to talk about too much today about trading through market corrections. Some of you might be watching this for the first time. You know, you're not really obligated to trade through it at all. If you need to trade through it, you've just got to, number one, lower those position sizes, pick your spots, use your stops, obey your rules. There's going to be a little bit higher element of frustration. There's going to be technical analysis like this person's talking about here, where your charts are now a little inaccurate. And the reason for that is because the ranges are expanded. So if you guys don't know what range is, that's how much a stock trades in a day. So if you're looking at, like, for example, the Dow, it would trade between 50 to 100 point range every single day. And then all of a sudden now you're going from like 100 points is like one candle, like a 1 minute move now. So you're going from 100 to 150 points max on a day to 1,000 So that, these things get stretched, and some of these stocks that you normally trade, you have to step away from them, or you have to dial down the position sizes. But to kind of get back on topic, what I really want you guys to understand is that it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be nervous. As long as they're not going into this market with double down risk and being ignorant and like I was, then you're fine. If it's just you're obeying a process and you're just getting stopped out and you're getting upset about things or you're getting frustrated, but you're doing good risk management, don't worry about it. Look, we all got to go through it. And I'll be honest with you, it's a harder to read market than it was a month ago. It will pass. We'll get through this. It's going to be just like we said the same thing in August. We're going to all push through this. It's not going to be that big of a deal, but you got to do that. But one of the key to being successful traders and successful investors is being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Did I say it right? Being comfortable with being uncomfortable. You got to learn to be uncomfortable. I mean, think about all of those Amazon investors they always talk about. If you would have bought Amazon back in 2000, if you bought 10,000 of Amazon back in 2000, you'd have like 20 million or some silly number like that today. True, but look at the long-term chart of Amazon. You would have been sitting on dead money for over a decade. A long time before that thing actually took off. So those investors were uncomfortable. It doesn't seem like it now, but they were. You yourself will feel uncomfortable. But unless you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation every so often, you will never know your boundaries. You will never be able to push past those boundaries and move up to that next level and take that next step for yourself. So anyway, guys, I hope that makes sense. Push your boundaries, but be logical about it. Push those boundaries. Think outside the box. Learn to live with being uncomfortable. You're going to be okay. Until the next happy hour, cheers, my friend.